Hey guys, so I'm finally filming my video where I talk about my top 12 books of 2012, and I apologize that it's so late. As you guys know, beginning of the year for me was pretty busy, but now I finally have the time to sit down and talk to you guys about the best books I read last year. The full list is going to be down in the down bar, so if you want to see it already, look in the down bar, but if you don't want to be spoiled, then stay tuned at the end to learn what my favorite book of 2012 was. So thank you again for watching, and without further ado, I'm now going to get started with this video. Number 12 is Bittersweet by Sarah Ockler, and as you may know, I love Sarah Ockler. Her books are so much fun. They tell really realistic stories with great relatable characters. This one is definitely one of Sarah Ockler's sweetest books because it follows a girl named Hudson who is making cupcakes at her mother's diner, and she's been doing that for a while. She kind of had to let go of her dream, and there's something that happened in her past that kind of forced her to focus on the diner rather than her passion. She rediscovers what she loved the most in life, and she rediscovers something that she's been missing out on, and that leads her to meet a new boy, and it's just a really sweet story with great morals and a great plot. I would definitely recommend it because it just is a light, good read even for the winter time or the summertime. Any time of the year this book would be great. I totally recommend it, and if you've read it, definitely let me know what you thought of it. So my 11th favorite book of 2012 was Legend by Marie Lu, and I really love this book. It's different, it's something fresh within the YA that will keep you intrigued the whole time and captivated to read more. We follow June, who is a teenage girl living in the Republic who's more on the wealthier side and who's more fortunate, and then there's a teenage boy named Day who we follow who was born into the slums of the Republic, so he's not as well off as June is. They're kind of opposites to say the least because June is a military prodigy. She's very dedicated, she's passionate, and she's obedient. She follows the rules and she's dedicated to her country. On the other side, Day is one of the most wanted criminals in the Republic, so as you can see, they live two very different lives. Out of nowhere, their paths cross and their lives intertwine, and that leads to the main conflict and the plot within this story. So with the help of each other, June and Day embark on a really exciting adventure that I think you guys should not miss out on. It was a great start to the series that I would definitely recommend for all those action lovers out there. Alright guys, so my 10th favorite book of 2012 was BZRK by Michael Grant, and I have to say this is one of the most unique and well thought out books. I read that last year. The plot is definitely something you have to wrap your head around, and I did do a review on this last year, so I'm going to leave an annotation in the top corner of this video. If I went into explaining this book, it would take me the entire video, so if you want to know more about the book, definitely check out my review. I go into a lot of depth about this book. It was so exciting. At times it was confusing to understand, but once you get it, you won't forget it. I know a lot of you may not like this because it's very different, but I can tell that a lot of you watching this video might really love it. So if you want to know more about it, please check out my review, and I hope you guys read it because I loved it. Alright guys, so my 9th favorite book of 2012 was A Million Suns by Beth Revis, and I absolutely love the sequel. This one lived up to all my expectations, and I could not have asked for anything more than what Beth Revis gave me in this sequel. I've talked about this series a lot in my videos, but for those who don't know, it follows a girl who is frozen and put on a ship that is going to arrive at a new planet in 40 years, and basically they need people with skills and talents in order to develop that planet. When they land, they can defrost and live right where they left off. So things do not go according to plan, and one thing leads to another, and Amy is defrosted, and this leads to a whole mystery as to why she was, who did it, and what they can do now. If you're not a fan of sci-fi, maybe this isn't for you, but if you do like it, I definitely recommend it. It's phenomenal. There's so many great descriptions and the world is just fantastic. So if you haven't read this series, definitely check it out because I loved it and I think you would too. So we're already on the 8th book of 2012, and that has to be The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. To put it very simply, this book follows a girl named Hazel who has been diagnosed with cancer and has been living with it for a long time, and it affects her lungs, so she has to have an oxygen tank. She joins a cancer group where kids come together who all are sick, and they kind of talk about their own stories and their experiences, and Hazel meets a boy named Augustus who literally changes her life as she changes his, and their whole adventure and how their lives intertwine and eventually lead to the end of this book is something I cannot describe because it's only something that can be read and experienced for yourself. This is the first book I read by John Green, and this is one of the most impacting books I read, and I finally got to experience his writing, which I will never forget, and it's made me want to read more books by him. The writing, the characters, the message, and the story is something I just can't leave behind, and this book has been with me ever since I put it down. It's more than a simple appreciation for a book. This goes so much farther than that, and I have to thank John Green for such a phenomenal book. So we're almost halfway there, and the book that takes up the 7th spot on my list is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater, and this was a really awesome book. Characters in the story that blew me away and really changed my perspective not only on Maggie Stiefvater, but just standalones in general. At the beginning of November of every year, there's something called the Scorpio Races. Each rider chooses a horse that emerges from the water every year to ride in these races, and it's fairly deadly and it's very dangerous because it's like a blood sport in itself. In the end, you could ultimately die from being a part of this race. The first character we follow is Sean, and he is a returning champion, and then we meet Puck, who is a girl who has never been in the Scorpio races, and she never thought that she would, but one thing leads to another, and she becomes the very first girl to ever ride a horse in the Scorpio races. I love the characters in this story, the plot, the concept is brilliant, and the whole description of the horses and the way they look is something you'll never forget once you read it, and it's just a phenomenal story, so creative, and it's something I really loved in 2012. So if you're looking for a good standalone novel, look no further because this book was great. Number 6 is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. It's so cool and I just loved it. And that book I'm talking about is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. And this is a retelling of the famous Cinderella story with a really cool and sci-fi twist. We have a girl named Cinder who is a cyborg living in Beijing. And like her stepmother, a lot of the people in Beijing think she is a burden to society. So yes, she does have an evil stepmother and kind of some evil stepsisters. So that all combined makes a really cool basis for the plot, but what makes this great is the setting and the fact, of course, that she's a cyborg and there's also a prince, and his name is Prince Kai. Those two characters really have a great connection in this story, and their connection is what leads to the plot and the whole conflict of this story. I love this book, one of my favorites of 2012 by far. The writing and the whole concept has left me so intrigued to read the sequel, and I cannot wait to continue on in this series. Book number 5 of my favorites of 2012 has to be The Pledge by Kimberly Derting, because this book was phenomenal. This book is very dystopian and it takes place in a unique and different country called Ludania, where people within it are separated by the language they speak. The main character is Charlania, and she has been keeping a very dark and deep secret ever since she has known. She is able to understand every other person's language and native tongue, and that is not good. Basically, if she wants to live, she has to keep this a secret. And of course, like any great YA book, there is a beautiful and mysterious boy, and in this one, his name is Max, and once Charlania meets him, things take a different turn, and her life will basically be changed forever and it will no longer be the same. Her secret, once it's revealed, it'll literally grab a hold of you and never let go, and you'll be forced to read the whole book because you just won't want to put it down, and it's so exciting and captivating, and I can't say enough good things about this book. Alright guys, so my 4th favorite book of 2012 is definitely Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness, and that's because this 3rd book in the series was phenomenal. I will never forget it. It's one of the best, if not the best, 3rd book in a series I've ever read. Patrick Ness grabs a hold of you right from the beginning and never lets go right up until the end, and the ending hurt me and made me happy all at the same time. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a roller coaster right from the start up to the very end. This book is seriously heavy and it kind of hurts to hold up, but for those of you who don't know, this is the 3rd book in the Chaos Walking trilogy, and we follow a boy named Todd, where we learned in the 1st book, lives in a town that only have men. This is because a long time ago there was a germ that was released that killed all the women and left the men not only being able to live, but they were left with the ability to hear each other's thoughts. When Todd is forced to flee home, his whole world turns upside down and he enters an adventure that he will never forget. There's so many great characters and elements to this story that start off with the first book, which is The Knife of Never Letting Go. And it was a great start to this series, don't get me wrong, but I have to say this book is the best one in the whole trilogy, in my opinion, so that's why it has my number 4 spot on my top 12 list of 2012. I'm really excited to share with you the third book of my list, which is Insurgent by Veronica Roth, and this is the sequel to Divergent. And the sequel definitely lived up to all my expectations that I was left when the first book ended. And it's really hard for me to like a sequel sometimes because a lot of the times the author doesn't put all of the elements I wish for in the second book, which caused me to kind of not like it as much, but this book did not let me down. In the first book, Divergent, we meet our main character, who is Beatrice Pryor, and we learn that she lives in dystopian Chicago. In the future, Chicago has been divided into 5 factions, and where you live is up to where you were born, but once you turn 16, you have the choice to either stay in your faction or choose a different one. Beatrice doesn't have a problem deciding because she knows what she wants and she knows what her future holds, so one thing leads to another, she makes her choice and she decides her fate. The writing was great, the characters were awesome, they developed, they grew, just what I look for in a sequel. Definitely read Divergent first, but once you finish that, take a hold of Insurgent, read it because you won't regret it. Number 1 and number 2 can easily be rotated and switched because I love them pretty much equally, but number 1 a little more so. So, without further ado, here is number 2, which is The Golden Lily by Richelle Mead, and this is the sequel to Bloodlines. So this Bloodline series takes off where the Vampire Academy series left off, so it's hard for me to talk about what this series is about because you guys have to read Vampire Academy first and then read this series. For those of you who have read Vampire Academy in this series, you know how good the writing is and how fantastic the characters are. I'm so thankful that Richelle Mead has not stopped writing about the world and the people in it, and I just love this series so much. There's something about these books that just are so different than Vampire Academy, yet so similar, and I just love that I'm able to still read about the world, the characters, but in a different point of view. Richelle Mead puts so much into her writing that I feel like I know the characters, I know the story off by heart. It's phenomenal. I can't describe the writing and how good it is. Richelle Mead has to be my favorite author because her writing, her stories, the way she tells them is something I've never experienced before and something you guys need to experience for yourself. Alright guys, so are you ready to see my all-time favorite book of 2012? Because I'm ready to show you guys, and this might come to a surprise to most of you, maybe it won't because I have talked about this book before. Well, maybe many of you are guessing it already, but if you're not, I'll let you know. Because it's The Immortal Rules by Julie Kagawa, and basically this book blew my mind. I don't know what else to say. It's seriously literally just when I look back at all the vampire novels I read, I literally just question why I liked them because this one just changed the way I just don't even know. This is the best vampire novel I have ever read. It's so much more than that, and because of that, I freaking loved it. There's action, there's thrilling moments, there's so much that goes into this. The characters, the relationships, the way it ends. Oh my gosh, it's like a roller coaster that I do not ever want to get off of. And that's the only roller coaster I ever want not to get off because those kind of freak me out, but this does not freak me out because it was an amazing, amazing book. This book follows a girl named Allison who lives in the outer part of the city known as the Fringe, and in the inner part, that is ruled by vampires. They are the people and the creatures that control the humans and have the ultimate control over everyone. When you live in the Fringe, you have to scavenge for food and you have to beware of what lurks at night because there can be a vampire anywhere you look. One thing leads to another and Allison becomes what she has feared the most, and it changes her whole life, her whole future, and even her present. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I cannot say enough about it. It's one of my all-time favorite books out there. I cannot wait to read the sequel. This is my number 1 favorite book of 2012 for those reasons, and I hope I persuaded you to read it. And I'll stop talking about it now because you guys are probably like, okay, we get it. It's your favorite book, but it is. I loved it. It's awesome. Alright guys, that was it. It was my top 12 books of 2012. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry for the wait to see this video, but I hope it was everything you hoped to be, and I hope I help you guys with my choices. And if you've read them, let me know in the comments and what your favorite books were of 2012 because I'd love to hear. Once again, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. I really appreciate it, and I hope you loved this video as much as I loved making it. So thank you again. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!